Good morning, everybody. That clock may be wrong back there. Feel free to get started at your leisure.
I would like to. And I passed out a memo to you guys. Okay. I'm not going to read it, so I'll just highlight touch on the highlights. My name is John Reichenbach. I'm a board member of the South Walton Community Council. We're here speaking on behalf of our
I think what John is doing here is just trying to reiterate the recommendations they made at this board's previous meeting, Destination Approved Committee. Yeah. It is. Yeah. Well, all right, so the way the process works is, this committee, the Destination Improvement Committee, advisory committees to the TDC, we went through, different items that was brought forth. We voted on them. They moved forward to the TDC. TDC had a chance to, review those particular items as well as some other items, and then weigh in on, what their disposition was. I did make a few errors in my presentation to the TDC. I received direction from the BCC to take it back to the TDC to give them another opportunity to review it. Meanwhile, I had made all the corrections and presented it to all the different bodies. They decided at that special meeting that they didn't want to do any more discussion about it and send it back to the BCC. So where we are in the process is now I am meeting individually with the commissioners to relay to them the previous committee's work and to take in input from them, because they as county commissioner have the opportunity to provide this input. Once we meet with all the county commissioners, we will take all that information we received from them, the information received from these previous boards, and we put it all together in a presentation to the BCC that would normally be at a regular meeting. And then at that time, they will decide which items they would like to discuss for possible revision. And they will also instruct or give direction to my department to work with legal department to draft this specific language for these items that have made it through these meetings and have also been added to meetings, as well as set a public hearing. All right, so normally we like to get all this done before December. Because of the little small issue with having to go back to the TDC and because of some scheduling issues, we've not been able to schedule meetings with all the commissioners and the two new commissioners that will be seated on the 20th. So that's pushed us back a little bit. We may be able to get it in, this presentation to the BCC at the December 13th meeting. However, that meeting is typically short because of its being in the holiday season. So we'll see. If not, it'll be on the first January meeting. And like I say, at that time, be a short presentation to the BCC. They will have discussion amongst themselves and decide which items they want to consider for revision. It may not be the... Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of the things that, yeah.
Well, and just so you know, I've been before the TDC supervisory, whatever that was, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Debated whether to come here because I know it would be duplicative, but
Mm-hmm.
I did. And the thing, and we have met with all but one commissioner, and we're meeting with Bill Chapman on Thursday. So we know, we think we know, the pulse of each commissioner. We have our board meeting, I think tomorrow, so we may tweak this a little bit, but we fully intend to come back on the 13th with more recommendations. And here's where I'm getting. I go to these meetings and we go through line by line, and I know Brian has to do that. But what I want to leave with you guys and the BCC is an overarching issue. One is we have too many vendors in our opinion, and I think we ought to stop issuing permits today. No new permits, work with what we have, because, Lord knows how many we got right now. The second thing is, we desperately need to manage the beach. Now, whether that's a managed beach vendor, 2 vendors per year, there's a lot of detail I know that goes into that. But if we can conceptually come to the big picture agreement that we need to do something and get about it, and, now we won't be perfect for 2019, I get it. But I think there's a lot of discontent out there that if we go a whole other season with nothing changing, that's going to be a problem. So, and I'll tell that to the BCC.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Right, so this, yeah, to establish a committee to develop the managed vendor program. That was the, part of this board's recommendation, as well as the TDC, recommendation is, yes, there needs to be a, committee, put together of, stakeholders, so to speak, and make sure we have plenty of stakeholders, so that we can develop the correct program that is, mutually acceptable and beneficial to all concerned. All right, so this board and Destination Improvement and the TDC operate as an advisory capacity to the BCC. So until the BCC decides that they do want to consider a managed vendor program, we won't set up that committee. All right, but it is moving forward in that direction. Right, right, right. So. Right, so keep in mind, like, so at the, when I talk about this presentation to the BCC, that's when I present, this wrapped up document of what everybody's discussed and what these different boards disposition as. And then that time, the BCC will take into consideration all that information and decide what items that they actually want to revise. And it may or may not include this whole list. See what I'm saying? But until they make that decision, until us, I say us, I mean my department and legal department, to actually draft the specific language. So right now what we've done is we've brought forth what I call conceptual ideas for code revision. So we've targeted the areas, we've put in some specific language, so as we go to write that specific language, it'll be easy to do. But the BCC will be the ultimate decision on, Brian, we want to consider 2254G, 2254R, 2257, 2260D, blah, 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 blah. See what I'm saying?
Now, do you ever do like a summary, layman's summary of what's being changed in the code?
Yep.
Because it does get pretty tedious when you go
It
through
will.
that whole process.
Right. So
Again, we're not here to micromanage the process. We've got a lot of people who are already micromanaging the process. What we're here to do is say, here's a conceptual place that we want to get to. We're here to help. We all are heavily invested in this community, and, we just think that the time is now for a change.
yeah. So the next document that will come out will be a wrap up of all the items that came before these two advisory committees, and then what the TDC decided on those items as well. And then when we present that to the BCC, it could be a long discussion or it could be a short discussion amongst them, because they will have already read the material, and anybody else in the audience will have opportunity to read the material as well and can make comments on whatever particular item they'd like to. And
How
then
do we access that? Do we go to the website, or can you email that?
I'll email it to your group, but it will also be included as part of the agenda.
Right.
All right, so that's really where it needs to come from.
Yeah.
That way everybody has the same information. Of course, I won't publish that information until we get close to putting it on the agenda.
I'm just saying, it'd be good to get a little advance notice so people can read it and understand it.
You will, right.
Because we're not all,
Yeah.
up to speed the way you are.
Right, so it'll be a week, advance notice when it goes on the agenda. And since your group has been, instrumental in helping form this, I'll make sure you're aware of it as well. But, and so at that time, like I say, that meeting with the BCC could be a long discussion like we've had, or it could be a very short discussion with Brian. These are the items we think we need to do. And Sydney, Brian, please draft specific language based on these previous advisory committees' items and their dispositions. And at that point, that's when we'll produce a struck and underlined version of the existing code. So you can tell exactly what's coming out and what's going in.
Didn't mean to be redundant, but I just want to make sure everybody knows it's a critical issue that we're all very.
Yeah, and one.
Thank you. We go over this every year.
Yeah.
I know.
And
how to do it. Well, and I know, and we're just trying now to get more involved. We know you guys need more public input, so we're trying to do that.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, John. One thing I'd like to add too is that during this committee and during the Destination Improvement Committee, there were a few small text changes that I did not include in the whole presentation to the TDC because I didn't feel it necessary. I think that those are simple text changes that can be included in the draft language. And it was some of the definition changes, a few wording changes to make it no ambiguities or remove ambiguities. So. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. All righty.
Hey, Brian, good morning.
Hey. Yeah. Yeah. No, we
Discussed all these things. We've discussed the bidding on them, and, you know, the big companies are gonna put the little companies out of business. Yeah, and then, you know, you can't go out and buy a bunch of chairs and umbrellas and then not get the lottery the next year and, you know, have to.
yeah. So to answer Barbara's question, yes, I have looked at different counties and what they do, and that's how I actually started developing this managed vendor program. If you recall, this is not new. We started talking about it really 4 years ago, and apparently there had been some discussions prior to my starting with beach operations of some sort of managed vendor program or concession agreement. And so the neighboring counties to the east and west of us have similar setups, and it's typically in the form of what's called a concession agreement. And then there's different ways of how the people get selected to be the concessionaire, and then there's different models of how they exchange compensation for that exclusive use. And those are the items that need to be worked out. The main items of how is the program actually managed on the beach are fairly simple. We have a good idea of what we want those items to be, and they've been included in different presentations in the past. And so, yes, the answer to your question is we are looking to see, you know, this is not, I'll be honest with you, my attitude now in this day and age, there's not really anything new. Everything's been done before, and there's good resources to go look for it. And so, but like I said, the next, you know, what I call stepping point is for the BCC to say, yes, we as Board of County Commissioners want you, beach operations and legal department, to develop, generate this managed vendor program. Maybe on the December meeting. We'll know more. It's definitely not going to be on the November 13th meeting because we have not been able to schedule those individual meetings with commissioners until some of them are after that date. Thanks, Barbara.
Sorry.
Okay. Can everybody?
Everybody can hear me. Okay, anybody else? All right, let's move on to approval of last meeting's minutes. We need a motion. Anybody want to make a
I
motion?
make a motion to
We have a
approve.
motion.
I'll second.
In a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. On to new business. Any new business?
Matt's gonna give us a quick update on Hurricane Michael.
Yeah, just wanted to give everyone a brief update. We were out on the beach the few days before. I think Michael hit on Wednesday. We were out there Monday and Tuesday doing some pre-storm beach photos, documenting mainly the neighborhood and regional beach accesses of the county's infrastructure, and then trying to fly as many drone shots and ground shots as we could. And then we went out the next day, Thursday and Friday. We were out there the rest of the week doing beach assessments, trying to look at did we sustain any major erosion, any major structural damage, any damage to infrastructure at the beach accesses, so on and so forth. But the good news is, the impacts were relatively minor. We certainly saw the benefits of a 70-mile-an-hour offshore wind really keeping the storm surge at bay. Helped us out tremendously. There was a intermediate tide gauge or storm surge gauge deployed in Destin at the Destin Bridge in East Pass, and that only recorded a storm surge of about 4 feet. So that's what we're estimating, somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 foot, and that has a lot of effect of the north wind in Chalkahatchee Bay in there as well. But from our visual assessments, we're guessing the storm surge in Walton County was anywhere between 3 and 5 feet, on average somewhere around 4. That ties in pretty well. While we didn't see any major beach erosion, the beach berm itself was narrowed and it was flattened. So if you went out there the following days, you had a lot of offshore wind, so it appeared the beach was nice and wide. But if you paid a little closer attention to the stairs coming off of a number of the beach accesses and boardwalks, you could see that, that new wood exposed, we did lose about 1 to 2 feet of elevation of the beach, and that sand was probably pushed offshore and a little bit in the east and west direction. So while the beach didn't seem to appear damaged that significantly, we did lose that elevation, and what that's going to mean is as we come into the winter season and we have more of these winter cold fronts and storm events coming in with a south wind behind them, we're going to see a lot more potential for the water to come up to the dune. A lot of difficulty for Brian's folks getting out there with equipment on the beach, trying to traverse in those tight areas. So there was some spot erosion in the Blue Mountain Beach area. I'll start the west end of the county on the old 98 stretch. There's almost no dune erosion at all. It's mainly just a lowering of the berm. We saw a little bit of vegetation impact, a little bit of lost sand fencing. Moving into the Sandestin area, Fort Panic area, we're starting to see some erosion at the dune toes, probably like 1 to 2 feet of a scarp right there at the dune toe, some losses of sand fencing. And that kind of progressed really all the way through the county. Interesting enough, some hot spots in Blue Mountain Beach, Seagrove area, and but then once you got over to Inlet Beach, it was almost like there weren't any impacts. It's the same thing, kind of 1 to 2 foot of scarping right at the dune, minor sand fencing erosion. So all in all, like, very well. You know, the beach performed very well. We got very fortunate being on the good side of the storm. I've been through a lot of hurricanes. This is one of the very first that I've actually been on the good side of the storm. It's not many where you're that close to those heavy offshore winds. So we got extremely lucky. But just please do keep in mind, if y'all see any erosion or if you see any hot spots, you see any major dune sloughing, please keep Brian and myself informed. We are going to be there's an item that's going to be on the BCC agenda here in the very near future. We're going to try and get out there very quickly, probably the next month or two, and do a county-wide comprehensive survey. So we're going to survey the mean high water line, take beach profiles every 1,000 feet, so that's mapping all the way from the dune, the beach, the offshore sandbars, all the way out to a -30, -40 foot elevation. So we get a full comprehensive picture of what the beach's current state is, and then we can do some back calculating and see what was lost over the last couple years, primarily contributed to Michael. So we'll have some much better data here in the near future, but all in all, that's pretty much it. And yeah, keep us informed if you see. I'm a little nervous as we make it into the winter season, what we're going to see as far as these storm events coming in, but hopefully it's just minor erosion here at the dune toes. But if it's something major, we can certainly get that addressed with the operations group.
Yeah, we had that high tide last month, and I mean, the water was up to the dune before the storm came.
Right, and now with a lower berm and the
Yeah.
dune already slowly starting to scarp, we really need to be vigilant and keep an eye out for that. There's not much we can do at the moment, just it's a wait and see. But we do have, Blue Mountain probably sticks out the biggest in my mind as far as the narrowest beach widths and some of the highest scarps. So that'll certainly be an area we keep an eye out for. But if y'all see anything, please keep us updated.
Can I say something? Sure. We did have some major erosion at some of the outfalls. I sent some of the things to Brian. At Eastern Lake, there is some piping that is exposed that's been was underlying in the outfall. County Environmental and the DEP are coming out to investigate what that is, why it's there. And you and I have dealt with this already. You had them cut off the one pipe, but this has exposed a number of pipes that we didn't know were there. And so they're working on that. There was a lot of debris in Camp Creek, Eastern and Western. Western has a good bit of erosion, which the Coastal Dune Lake Advisory Board is looking at because we have some homeowners that are affected in the outfall. And Eastern Lake had a lot of debris, had a lot of dock damage on the eastern side. And then Camp Creek, the vendor did not remove their boxes. Their boxes were just destroyed, and a lot of them were in the lake in the outfall. The homeowners removed as much as they could. The vendor continued to vend and did not clean up his area or the boxes or any of the splintered wood.
This is water sound?
I sent that to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so I had a lot of homeowners calling me from there, complaining about that. But and we didn't make them remove the boxes, but they still should have cleaned up. After, especially if it.
We actually did send out a notice.
Oh, well.
When you drive on the beach. We've had some issues with driving on the beach. We received notification from admin, legal department that we could do it. And, this was fast moving storm.
It was hard to get everything off, but then to continue to vend with the mess and not clean it up. And the homeowner saw it as a danger because there was so much of it. But he was continuing to vend after the storm with all of the mess there, and it being in the outfall, which is a protected zone. So
Yeah. I'll go back and look and see what action we took against them, and then I'll speak with them personally.
Okay.
Make sure they understand.
And we did, I forgot to mention the dune lakes. We did take some nice aerial shots of each one of the dune lakes. I know exactly where you're talking about at that western side. Pretty large scarps over on that side there.
Mm-hmm. If you would share those pictures with us, that would be great, because we're
Sure.
working on a project there at Western Lake to decide what to do there. So.
I'll make sure we get them to Brian and he can filter
Okay.
them out.
All right, moving on. Any old business? Okay, next thing, Lisa, vendor management plan, vendor
Okay.
fees?
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to ask the BCC to direct the TDC departments, beach management or whatever, or beach maintenance or whatever departments, to develop a vendor management plan to be ready for no later than the 2020 beach season.
Okay.
And this
Certainly,
is
I
not
mean,
all
you know,
of it.
this would be like a supplement to what you've already done, if you do want to take some action on it. But that item was addressed, you know, completely, and TDC, you know, agreed that, it needed to be researched, and moved it forward to the BCC.
So we don't have to ask the BCC to
No.
vote on giving you direction to proceed then?
No.
That was already in
That's
our.
We already did it
Okay.
at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
last
I
TDC
knew,
meeting.
right, okay, yeah.
So like I
Okay,
said, you know,
then-
the next thing is the BCC needs to say, we as the Board of County Commissioners, want to explore a managed vendor program. Brian, Sydney, please develop a committee, that includes all the stakeholders you feel necessary, and come back with a draft form of, or I'm sorry, assemble the committee, and the committee come together and meet and develop a draft form of a managed vendor program.
So you don't need any motion related to
No.
that for us to go to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Then these are the vendor fees. I just want to mention that I've seen a lot of social media feedback on the fact that the vendor fees are low, like less than a day's revenue, 1 day's revenue in most cases. And so at some point or another, I would like to see us recommend to review, you know, for the BCC to review those and hopefully, you know, raise them, adjust them in accordance to
Okay.
say, but that may go along with the beach management plan as well. So I'm not sure that a motion at this time makes any sense on that. But these next two things I want to suggest are about 2019.
Okay.
I think we're at a critical juncture right now that we need to do something for this next season, because we clearly know that the customary use issues are not gonna be settled by then, certainly not in time to, you know, putting plans in place. So, what I'd like to suggest is one of two things. Either that an attendant be required by the beach vendors, or by, if Walton County chooses to be the one that does it, but I think an attendant needs to be required to prevent a bunch of empty chairs on the beach. And I think that needs to happen this summer. That would be my suggestion. If that absolutely positively will not fly, for whatever reasons, then the alternative to that, I'd like to suggest, is that the beach basically be 3 tiers. Tier 1 is closest to the water, Tier 2 is the middle section, Tier 3 is closest to the dune. We've already designated, or the BCC has already designated Tier 3 to be tents. I'd like to see Tier 2, this is assuming that the attendant doesn't fly. I'd like to see Tier 2 be the vendor zone, and Tier 1 is for the public that brings their own chairs. And that's, I've thought and thought how we can do something that can be done quickly and fairly easily, and frankly, those are the two ideas that I could come up with and that I've sort of bantered around with some other
Okay.
people.
And you would apply this to the regional beach accesses only?
I'm sorry, regional and large segments that allow the beach vendors on them.
Gotcha.
What do you call those, Brian? The ones that are not really regional accesses, but they do have a lot of vendor activity on them?
Well, they're called regional beach accesses if they have parking and restrooms.
Right,
And then they're called neighborhood beach accesses if they don't have those two components.
right,
Now,
but you've
but-
got some that have over
We do,
100.
Yeah, so,
feet or-
so Grayton Beach, you know, really kind of operates like a regional beach access, even though it does not have restrooms.
So can we
uh,
say regional beach accesses
Mhm.
and pseudo-regional beach
Yeah,
accesses
because
then?
they, large neighborhood beach accesses.
Okay,
The other
large.
ones we call, originally the 50% vendor zones were recommended for neighborhood beach accesses that have in excess of 100 linear feet of public beach associated with them. Because we do have some neighborhood beach accesses that are very narrow.
Right.
And that width varies, but, so yeah, I would say that this would be applied to regional beach accesses and the large neighborhood beach accesses that act like a regional beach access.
The long story where we sit is we've already recommended everything to the BCC, which has come back and said, everybody hang tight, we're gonna tell you what we wanna do.
Right.
So there's not much we can do until the BCC comes back and says, hey, you guys get a committee, and now we want specific details, because we already blasted them with details and kinda got the hold, please, we're gonna.
Yeah.
Well, but we have to have another, public workshop. And because of the way this is rolled
Sure.
out, we have to have
Mhm.
another public workshop.
they-
And I think people are counting on the BCC, and we are supposed to be a stepping stone for
Sure.
this, to recommend something to
Yeah.
alleviate the problems this summer,
Sure.
not wait
Yeah.
another year and a half before anything at all gets done to help
Mhm.
with that issue.
And I think
Yeah.
the BCC is going to do that when they say, we want a committee, and they may not even want a committee, they may say, this is the law of the land, and this is what we're gonna do, but they may say we want a committee, and then that's where,
They'll solicit input from all of them.
that's when
Yeah.
everybody then gets the input, and then they come up with everything they want to, and then it's enacted, so it's.
Yeah.
It's out of our hands for the time being.
Well, if we don't.
For this
recommend-
cycle.
But if we
No.
don't recommend it.
Right,
then-
I think what Lisa's recommended today is an alternative in the event that the managed vendor program doesn't stick, or if it takes longer than, it can be implemented this upcoming season. So it's a good idea, you know,
Some
always have a
some
plan B.
Band-Aids,
It's-
Band-Aids
yeah.
in
It's a
the
Band-Aid.
interim.
Right,
Yeah,
right. So I'll include this in the information that is moving forward in the presentation, and we'll say, you know, managed vendor program, and in lack of a managed vendor program set up for this year, here are some other recommendations that were brought forth by the Beach Management Committee.
thank you.
Brian, what is the status of the restrooms at Grayton Beach?
We have received a report back from our consultant engineer as to feasibility, viability of constructing it, where we have our number one choice, which is right there where the Banfield Spur and the East Drive-On Boardwalk come together. You know what I'm talking about? So we have received that report. The report really wasn't that favorable. I have not shared it with anybody. I was waiting until after the new commissioners got seated, and I'll present that to them probably in January. That this is a project that got started. It's kind of gone up and down. Here's our report from our consultant engineer, and please advise on which steps you'd like us to take moving forward. And it may be, you know, Brian, not much chance of getting it built there. Let's abandon and step back, find a better place, which really would mean somewhere on the street, you know, grid up there. So,
I've had a lot of people asking me, so.
yeah. You know, there needs to be some restrooms there. I would like for them to be, you know, where we have thought they should be. I think it would work, but it's looking like FDEP is really going to make it hard to build there. And, you know, I get it, you know, I mean, we knew it was going to be hard trying to build it there. But there's just not much land available in the interior of that neighborhood where it be close proximity to the beach. And then there's always that problem of trying to build restrooms next to a established residential house. You know, nobody wants public restroom next to their house, believe it or not. So,
Well, they would be right in front of these properties, that's the, you
it
know,
would be, and, you know.
between the beach and the properties, and that's.
Yeah. You know, I met with that homeowner right there, chance meeting. I was down there one day. He was there. I talked with him. He didn't have a whole lot of grief over it, to be honest with you, when I explained what it was going to be. And I think that's the biggest issue, is making sure everybody understands what it's going to be, and more importantly, what it's not going to be. So what we have is, you know, a very modest building, low, you know, to fit the architectural style of that community. And I think it would fit in, but.
Well, we've got a dumpster issue there, so if we could solve the dumpster issue and the bathroom issue in one, like, location, with private industry and the county.
What's the dumpster issue?
The dumpster issue that we have at the Red Bar there on the corner
Mm-hmm.
is that their dumpster is running off into the lake. And even when we do the new project with the stormwater management, it's still gonna be an issue. So what they're hoping for, we had applied for some grant money, I don't know what's happened with that, but where you have a self-contained dumpster system and that dumpster will feed into that stormwater system
Mm-hmm.
rather than into the street, the runoff, and it's covered, so it doesn't have as much rain that gets into the dumpster that takes all
yeah.
that. And so if we could combine that with a bathroom area on that corner, that would solve both of those problems.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
And keep the bears out, so there's a lot of things that could be
Yeah.
solved right on the corner of Hots. And
That was, my next step was to go down and look and see what we have available that may be a public-private partnership. And it
That-
sounds like what you described there.
that would be
Yeah.
the best, and it's right where you walk in
Yeah.
on that side to the beach, and people are going to the Red Bar and going to the bathroom anyway, it's right there, so,
Yeah. We could have a dumpster, bathroom, margarita stand, all right
Right,
there.
all right there. We'd probably have to arrange that with Ollie for him to agree.
And some kind of little, burger window, so you can get your burger and all that.
Hey, that's a good idea, Walt.
Drive-through, yeah.
Walk up.
Window.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm not familiar enough with the area to know the answer to this, but is there enough room on the Red Bar property that they might allow an easement for the county to build a bathroom?
Like I said, I don't know,
No, but we have an ROW right there.
yeah, we have
Oh,
Where
so,
the dumpster
Yeah.
is in the
Oh,
ROW,
okay.
actually, so. we
So
could-
they might not really even mind, because then it would alleviate a lot of people probably traipsing in just
Well,
to
if we
use the
could get the
bathroom.
funding for all of it, it would solve his problem, our problem.
Yeah.
And
like I said,
combined with some grant money.
it may take something like that in that area because it's so congested.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So anyway, but like I said, January, we'll present this report we received here from our consultant engineer and start the process again, so. Okay?
Any council comments? Next item. I did notice that Stallworth still flooded with water from the shower, the beach access right there. I mentioned that, gosh, I don't know, a year ago.
What now?
Right there, the dune walkover, right next to the shower.
Where the rinse shower is, yeah.
Oh, on the pavers, yeah, it's been like
Well,
that.
the
Yeah.
actual tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you could see where they
Yeah,
drilled holes
Drilled
in
holes.
it years ago and stuff, but,
it gets.
I mean,
slow.
it just needs to be lifted up and dug out. It's all filled in under the tracks.
Yeah.
But I walked on it the other day and slipped and about
Yeah.
broke my neck. It's
Yeah.
slippery
I'll
and it's dangerous.
I'll have somebody, I'll have somebody address
Brian,
it.
they try, they sweep it, and honestly, they'd be
It's
better
got
off
some
to.
algae on
They,
it.
yeah, they'd
Well,
be
it
better
needs a
off to
drainage.
leave the sand.
No, we've had that
Yeah,
issue before.
yeah.
You're right, it needs to be taken up and dug out. and
Yeah.
it-
Yeah.
It doesn't take long for the sand to silt it back. in.
Sure.
It
sure.
really just needs to be elevated.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you could elevate it
really what it
and
needs. It needs
elevate
to be
everything, the
elevated.
pavers right in there.
Yeah.
I mean, the last section of dune walkover.
We'll
We've
look
had
at
a
it.
lot of complaints about it.
We probably addressed a lot of that with the new design, but we're not really pursuing that one right now because.
Just the elevations there and the drainage, it's
We'll look
an
at it.
issue. It's a
We'll solve the
safety
problem
issue.
so people don't get hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Any public comments?
Thank you for listening. My sense of urgency, Lisa, I think you're right on target. I think something needs to be done 2019. Whether it's those suggestions, we definitely an attendant there. I think we need to see a body. We need to get rid of ghost chairs. That's the most important thing too. And that can be eliminated very easily. Call the night before, set out my chair. If I'm the condo owner and I took a seasonal contract, I put it in my condo, call Buddy's Beach Service when you want it. Buddy puts it out. Everybody's happy. Attended, years are an excellent suggestion, so thank you very much. Sense of urgency. Take care.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else, anybody?
In closing, make sure you're aware of the 2019 dates.
I do have a question for Stacy on that. The November 6th, that is supposed to be on a Wednesday instead of a Tuesday?
That's what I was just saying.
A Thursday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday or Thursday?
November 6th of 2019 is a Wednesday.
It's on a Tuesday.
It's supposed to be,
No, we're always on Tuesday.
so it's supposed to be the 5th. Okay, thanks.
I saw it. Cool.
I'm not looking that far in advance.
It won't get calendared.
Okay, anything else, anybody? All right, let's adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, who's not in favor of that?
Thank you, Brian.
Appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.